Blue chip leaders value service. We know this because every year we hear from our students about how they want to get involved in the community and participate in service experiences. In fact, every year, as an organization, Blue Chip students conduct more than 5,000 hours of service in the Tucson community. However, in our eagerness to get involved in a service project, we sometimes overlook the importance of understanding the mission and goals of the organization we are working with. Additionally, we rarely, if ever, consider what we as individuals are bringing to the project. Specifically, how do we identify the assets, interests, and needs of all of the stakeholders in a community-based project? What do students, the community partners, and persons served by the organization all bring to the project? Without knowing the full scope of the issue and the roles of the stakeholders, we may be insensitive to the challenges and capacities of individuals within the organization. We may provide services that are actually of little use to the organization, or we may fail to comprehend the impact we have had on the organization, the community it represents, and the larger world. This video will introduce you to a couple of key concepts that will be important for you to keep in mind as you engage in service this year and in the future. So what do we mean when we're talking about identifying assets, interests, and needs in relation to working with a community partner? Assets are the tangible or intangible resources, qualities, and/or material items that each party brings to the table. This might include physical assets like having access to a car to transport volunteers or supplies. It also includes considering the strengths you bring to the work. What are your Clifton strengths? What are you good at doing? Are you good at working through problems, building relationships, communicating with others? Do you have other identifiable skills like being able to effectively research, run a social media campaign, speak in a public setting, etc.? All of these are assets that you bring to the work that might come in handy when serving an organization. Interests are what's at stake for each party, what each party is hoping to achieve through the act of working collaboratively together. For you, this could be learning more about careers in the nonprofit world, or exploring an issue that's impacting your community, or the desire to make an authentic difference for an organization. The organization is also hoping that your service will help them accomplish an essential task or project that will help them meet their mission. Needs are the gaps in assets, places where the resources of one of the partners can make a meaningful difference to the other. It's important to acknowledge that the community partners and those it serves have needs that we might hope to address, but they're not needy, and will bring their own strengths, assets, capacities, and self-identified needs to the project. In order for a community-based project to be the most effective, all stakeholders need to be transparent about the assets they bring to the table and the outcomes they hope to gain from participation. A defining characteristic of instrumental leaders is a willingness to use any resource at their disposal to influence others to help the leader's goals. While everyone has something to contribute to your group's effort to make a community-based project successful, many times, students are unaware of the valuable assets they already possess. In order to identify the assets you bring to a team and project, a useful exercise to complete is the creation of a personal asset map in which you identify the knowledge, skills, resources, and networks that you are bringing to a group. When combined together with other members of your group, these assets form a team asset map, which can be used to identify how your group might best be able to support the needs of an organization you're working with. When zoomed out to examine the broader community, a community asset map takes a strength-based approach to understanding the types of individuals, organizations, and institutions that exist in the community that can be leveraged to help you solve larger systemic issues at the community level. While we're not going to be creating a community asset map this semester, this is a concept that we will be exploring further next semester and in later years of the Blue Chip leadership experience. When creating a personal or team asset map, you'll want to consider the following types of assets: knowledge, or the expertise or information that you've acquired. For example, this could be knowledge of the town you're in, or information about chemistry, accounting, or history. Skills are practical abilities learned through training and/or practice, such as how to change a tire, playing the piano, using Microsoft Excel, etc. Resources are tangible items of value that might be in your possession or that you know how to acquire, such as a computer, a camera, or even a library card. Networks are the people you are connected to, either through direct relationships or through others. For example, you might have an uncle who works in a restaurant and can get access to food. Or perhaps you know a friend of a friend who has experience with grant writing and might be able to help your team out. While identifying our own needs, interests, and assets is a critical first step to knowing what we're bringing with us to a service experience, it is important that we take the time to really understand the community, organization, and stakeholders we're working with it as well. The following story will highlight why it's important to get to know the communities we're serving before taking action.
Fulfilling a need with community service. One year, Steve, a college student, decided that he wanted to do something to improve the life of kids in an inner city community. He wanted to be able to give these children some of the joy that he was fortunate to have. So after many weeks of turning the idea over in his head, he decided to have a bike drive to get donated bikes and money to buy new bikes for kids in this neighborhood. After all, he spent much of his summers and weekends out on his bike with his friends. As the bike drive progressed, Steve started getting really excited about the response. He was getting donated bikes almost every day, and he was able to get enough donations for at least 4 new bikes, more if the store owner would drop the price for the cause. The bikes would give kids an inexpensive pastime and one that would help them get more exercise, a great secondary effect given the increase in childhood obesity. The big day came. There were 16 bikes in all. Steve made an arrangement to drop off the bikes with a leader in the community so that the bikes could be given anonymously. For days, he thought about the look of excitement the kids would have when they got their new bike. After 2 months, he couldn't stand it anymore. So on a Saturday, Steve went to the community to see the kids, at least some of whom he thought would be out riding. When he arrived, there was no one out on bikes. Maybe it's too early, he reasoned. So he got back in his car, drove around for a while, and then returned. Still no one. Disheartened, he drove to the place that he had dropped off the bikes to inquire as to their delivery. When he drove up, he saw all 16 bikes in the parking lot, chained together and rusting from the weather. Trying not to show his frustration, Steve asked the man who had taken the bikes why he had not given them to the kids. "I tried," he said. "The mothers in the community don't want them to have bikes, though, because the streets aren't safe."
The previous story highlights how important it is for those looking to serve the community to spend the time necessary identifying the assets, needs, and interests of all stakeholders involved. If we only identify our resources and what we bring with us, we may find ourselves falling into the trap of only coming to fix the community. Whereas when we take the time to identify the strengths and assets of the community, we're more likely to understand the needs of who we are serving while also engaging in a powerful opportunity to learn and grow ourselves. When we recognize others as whole human beings like us who bring their own assets to the table, and when we operate from that conviction, true reciprocity can result from our interactions. This quote from Rachel Naomi Remen articulates 3 different modes of service interactions for us to consider. Helping, fixing, and serving represent 3 different ways of seeing life. When you help, you see life as weak. When you fix, you see life as broken. When you serve, you see life as whole. Serving is different from helping. Helping is not a relationship between equals. A helper may see others as weaker than they are, needier than they are, and people often feel this inequality. The danger in helping is that we may inadvertently take away from people more than we could ever give them. We may diminish their self-esteem, their sense of worth, integrity, or even wholeness. Serving is also different than fixing. In fixing, we see others as broken and respond to this perception with our expertise. Fixers trust their own expertise, but may not see wholeness in another person or trust the integrity of the life in them. When we serve, we see and trust that wholeness. We respond to it and collaborate with it. And when we see the wholeness in another, we strengthen it.